We're a little bit ahead of schedule, so I'm going to put Russ and that last team do a little bit of roasting maybe, or some hot questions. Let me ask you a couple of questions, Russ. One, I just received a phone call just a few minutes ago from a tutoring agency that was entertaining two young kids, 12 years old each, and they were farm boys. And they were talking openly about their farming experience and their parents having a lot of trouble with hemp. They were really excited about hemp, and they seemed to know a lot, but they were finding that the harvesting and the equipment that they maybe have traditionally used was breaking down with hemp. How are we going to break through that? I mean, there are two things there. One is the education of youth, because that was quite exciting that these kids knew as much as they did. Maybe we need a 4-H equivalent, but the other one is the equipment side of it.
Well, I think you heard Aaron talk a little bit about that in terms of some of the custom machinery that they've made, and I know Manitoba Harvest over the years has built specific equipment designed to handle hemp. So it does have some unique characteristics, but I know that back in the day, an old John Deere tractor, they have a dial that you set for different crops that you're harvesting, and one of those settings was hemp. So it's not particularly new, but it is challenging. And one of the things that I find, Jeff Kostiak, who's with Hemp Genetics International and Hemp Production Services, and one of the leading agronomists in the industry, has said, you know, the beauty of hemp is it's one of the strongest natural fibers in the world, and one of the biggest problems of hemp, it's one of the strongest natural fibers in the world. And it does tend to wrap around bearings, it does tend to shut down combines. I was at a farm meeting and a guy stood up and said, "Did you ever hear that story about the guy that left his combine in the field and the high straw caught on fire and burned his combine?" I said, "Yeah, I've heard that. It's myth." He said, "No, that was me." And so it does happen. And so, you know, there's certain protocols I think that you need to consider when you're handling hemp. But farmers are so ingenious, and you know, if something doesn't work, they fix it. They get the welder out and they get a wrench and a hammer, and you know, and they build equipment to manage that. And I remember a guy who came to one of our conferences, and it was just right around harvest time, and his knuckles were just all chewed up, and he'd been harvesting hemp. I don't know, you weren't around there at that time, Clarence, but you know, he just hadn't found that modification yet. But some farmer came along with an idea, and they put up a guard and a shield, and it manages it. So, you know, we're a small crop, but as it gets bigger, these things will resolve, and the harvesting companies will certainly create equipment, even just a dual header, you know, that cuts that crop in two different sections to catch the head in one and the straw in another. That's an innovation that's really specific for hemp, essentially. And there's some pretty fancy machines out there now. They're not cheap, but you know, they really do get the job done. So it's just the innovation of a farmer. I have such high regard for them.
Okay, we've beaten that horse. I got a second horse for you. There are a lot of municipalities in this room, and Tom, you're an economic development officer, as a number of others probably are, or here on behalf of their officers, looking for economic opportunities of hemp. Colleen, you did a marvelous job of talking about Barrhead, which isn't a tiny community, but there are some tiny communities here. And then I hear Jesse talk about mobile decortication, and then I hear what Aaron is talking about. The opportunity for municipalities in Alberta to have a decorticator, for example, seems to me to be a critical utility, and maybe just exactly what an incentive they need. Are there communities that are looking at actually putting decorticators into their town? Go ahead, Colleen or Russ.
I'll just say, I see it as, I mean, small communities, if they needed something, they built it themselves. Right. You know, small towns put in their own electricity grid, they put in their own seed cleaning plants, why couldn't each?
Can you repeat what she's saying? Because we can't hear it. Yeah. You're on stage again. Jesse, you might want to comment on this as well. Jesse.
I think absolutely every community should or can have a decortication facility, just as we would have a seed cleaning plant or any kind of other processing or whatever, and it can be basically built to suit whatever kind of hemp processing you're doing within the region, whether it's dual or single, strictly fiber, and so on.
Pass it on to Jesse.
Well, one of the insights that I think I gained from Tam, having been around this industry since inception, essentially, is that a lot of companies have come and gone, you know, saying, "Hey, we're going to build a decorticator if only you guys would grow And the farmers are saying, well, we'll grow if you build a decorticator. And you know, because it's a significant investment. I mean, what Inca and Blue Sky have done, pulling, you know, collaborating, pulling together and raising the money and doing it, they said, enough of this chicken or the egg, we're going to do it. And that works, but it doesn't work for every small community. And over the years, we've seen an exodus of jobs from small towns to big cities, and our small towns are kind of crumbling. And how do we bring jobs back to rural communities? And that are agriculture related. I grew up on a farm. I picked rocks. I hated it. I was praying every day for a job other than picking rocks, you know. So part of the I don't know, the spirit of this highly mobile, redeployable equipment we've developed is we recognize at this stage in the industry that is now, when the supply chain is not established and it's not developed, you know, there is a need for maybe small operations. You know, not every little community can have a big ribbon cutting, but until our industry is established and we can have a decent size regional decortication all over the place, I mean, there's a space for these small operations and this smaller equipment and these rural jobs. And you know, 20 years from now, when things are humming and we've got millions of acres in the ground, we're going to need big facilities. But for right now, it's kind of maybe a good stopgap or a good transition. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, any closing comments, Russ?
Not really. Just thank you all for coming, and please find each other. Please talk to each other and network. And you know, there's offers on the table. There's a lot of interesting presentations. There are going to be a lot more. So that's the point of this whole thing, is to build this industry here in Alberta. Thank you.